Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of the Love of Wisdom Book Club. I'm joined once again by Pruga P to discuss a book which he recommended to me actually. The first fiction book that I have done an episode on. This is called A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. You'll notice when we come to discussing the book that both of us have doubts around the name of the author, and unfortunately the one bit I persisted with was the one bit I actually got wrong in his name, but hopefully this correction does justice to that. This book, I thoroughly recommend it. It was hilarious, it was insightful, but also light and easy to read, and made for a nice break from the usual heavy non-fiction reading that I do. But yeah, this also made for a good light-hearted conversation that went off in all sorts of different directions, and as always was a pleasure. So I hope you all enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Both of them. So hello, Robin. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Sorry, this is your podcast.
It is my podcast.
Yes.
But, you take it away, man.
It's all you.
You take the lead.
It's all you.
How you doing?
I'm all right, mate. How you been, man? It's been a
Yeah.
hot sec. It feels like.
It has been a minute. We've been on that delayed thing with pushing it back and pushing it back.
Yes.
Then someone goes AWOL off Messenger.
I do go AWOL. Yeah. I am like that. To be fair, I don't even know why you don't have my number either. That's why.
I just don't. It's a weird one. I don't know why.
I'm better at responding on like WhatsApp than I am Messenger. I'm never, because I don't get notifications either, and I don't often go into Messenger.
Messenger's a bit glitchy like that. It doesn't always send me notifications.
Well,
so I miss people's messages all the time.
I just have notifications turned off completely for everything.
Okay.
So I don't. If anyone tries to get in contact with me, I don't even know. Because I don't like to have my peace disturbed or interrupted. So. But then also, if you do go on Facebook, sometimes you don't see it. The little like red thing. You don't always get that in the top corner either, to say you've got a message on Messenger. So yeah, I'll have to give you my number.
Yeah, we'll have to rectify that.
Yeah, we'll sort that one out.
It's only been like, what, 10 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's
it didn't really
minor.
matter. Yeah, it's all good. You're in the centre. Cool.
But yeah. It's funny. The Disturb Your Peace thing is kind of interesting, actually, because I've started doing, like last night, as soon as the sun set, I turned my phone off, and I've not turned it back on since. Like when I messaged you earlier, I logged onto my laptop to do it.
Oh, okay.
And it was sort of because I know a few Jewish people who adhere to the sort of Sabbath and things like that. So from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, they won't use any technology. And I'm not going to go that far because there are things like lights and stuff like that that I need to use. But I thought it would be good because I like the idea of that. And, like what part of the reasoning behind that, or when I've heard them spoke to people about it and they've explained it, is that they do it so that they have a break, and it's like part of having a family and like focusing on family time. So during that time, it's all about being together and doing things rather than screens and technology. And I was like, I just like the idea. So why don't I try and incorporate a little bit of that? And so as a bit of an experiment this week, I've gone without my phone, and having my phone turned off and in another room, I slept way better last night.
Oh,
I slept for like 9.5 hours last night.
Flipping now.
I never sleep more than 7 hours.
Yeah, no,
and I slept 9.5 hours without my phone next to me.
Okay. Why do you think that was?
Well, quite often, if I wake up in the night and stuff like that, what I'll do is I'll put a podcast on Spotify with like a 15-minute sleep timer, and that noise in the background will help me get back to sleep. Otherwise, I can't get back to sleep. But last night I woke up and got straight back to sleep, and I wonder if there's something about that sort of addictive part of having a smartphone. You're like, it's there. I could just go on it, and so I think there's something unconscious in my brain that's going, your phone's there.
Yeah,
pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and not having that.
Yeah,
I was just able to relax. It's good. I'm enjoying it.
I like that. I'm so hooked to my Instagram and just scroll on my flipping. It's pretty out of control. Like I wake up and like the first thing I do, I go on the toilet and like I'll just scroll on Instagram. It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. Yeah. It's just really bad. So yeah, I'd like to try to employ some of that, but I just know that I won't. I just know that I just won't stick to it. But yeah.
Well, that's why I had to do it, because like, you know, I always set myself things like, oh, I'm going to cut down on using social media and I'm going to cut down on using my phone, because I'm a complete addict for my phone. I keep getting weird distorted noises in this. Is it just the cable?
Oh, it's the cable, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
as long as it's not going to affect.
No, we can like carry on though.
Yeah,
you're gonna get a bit of distortion for a hot sec, and it might go.
Yeah.
Has it gone?
No, it's still there. Let's see.
Is it annoying? Like, would you like me to change the cable? Is it that?
Let's see. It's sort of it's all right.
Yeah.
I can live with it.
I can adjust the cable if you like. I can change the cable if you want me to. If it's that.
Right. Well, let's deal with it, because now that we've made the delay, we may as well deal with it.
Okay, cool, no worries. So yeah, sorry, you're terribly addicted to your phone.
Yeah. So I'm always really addicted. So I installed this thing ages ago. It's called Minimalist Phone or something like that. So it makes everything black. Like if you go onto your apps, it's just a list of the titles of the apps. There's no pictures. There's no colors or anything like that. I got rid of all my social media apps. And then over time, I just started using Chrome for Facebook, and I started navigating my way around it. And I was like, it worked really well for a few weeks. Yeah. And then I just find ways around it. And I'm like, I never wanted to find a way around it. How have I ended up doing this?
Yeah.
So turning the phone off sort of takes that option away, because you're like, well, I've got to turn my phone on to do it. Yeah. And that's excessive. And in that time, I can check myself and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Okay, that's good, man. That's good. I like that.
But obviously I can't do it every day, because people do need to get in touch with me sometimes, and just
stuff,
having your phone off 24 hours a day would probably mess things up a little bit.
I think it's like I wonder if this kind of, because I mean I think it's a big thing at the moment, the idea of kind of separating from technology and social media and stuff like that, and taking some. I think I read a book. I listened to a book recently. I forget the name of it, which is whack, but it's this guy, and it's about being addicted to your phone or something like that. And he talks about like just getting like short dopamine hits, and he said that he went away to like somewhere in America, went to like a cabin and whatnot, just to have a proper detox. But he's like, that's so unsustainable, because first of all, not everyone can employ that. Who can just go away for a month to a village and then a cabin in the woods in the middle of America? Hardly anyone. And then he had a conversation, or he interviewed one of the engineers or someone at Instagram, and was like, or Facebook, and was like, oh, like, why do you make it so addictive? And so it's like, well, it's a business and we need to keep eyes on it. And like, whilst he made some good points about kind of, yeah, like he wanted to make a point about personal responsibility, but then I think sometimes those kind of like the people that are inclined to like be on the side of social justice, and they want to put, like, especially ones that are quite present as well, or hyper aware, they're like, there does need to be some kind of personal responsibility and kind of accountability on your actions, whether you pick the phone up and go into the app or not. But then they sometimes double down and be like, well, actually, well, not double down, but like they shift the blame and say, well, actually, there's a big responsibility on the people that are creating these apps and social media platforms. So I don't know, but I do think that, I don't know, like, I mean, when like the television first came out, or like even like when electricity was like, or like even the radio maybe, like, do you think people is like, I just got to get away from the radio? Like, I just need to get away from the radio. I'm just hearing too many conversations. I'm hearing too much music. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like, I've seen too many. Like I've had the lights on all day. I just need to turn the lights. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think there was ever that there was this like overflow of like technology with regards to, because it's all relative, isn't it? Do you know what I'm saying? If you don't know what a smartphone is, then the next best thing is probably a TV, and then if you don't know what a TV is, the next best thing is probably a radio kind of thing.
Well, I think there was a little bit of that with the TV, because I remember, some people would like put time limits on how much TV you could watch, or only TV after a certain hour, or because people would. There was that real sort of stereotype, wasn't there, of families with their TV dinners just sat watching TV all night, and people would joke about the kids being raised by the TV more than the parents and things like that. So there was things like that, and I remember when I was younger having time limits on how long I could play video games for, which used to really annoy me. I don't know, I used to get up at like 5 a.m. so that I could circumvent the rules. So I'd be like, I'm playing Sonic now. If I can get 3 hours of Sonic in before my parents get up, then it doesn't count on the 1 hour limit for the day. So there were limitations, but I just think that smartphones have just become, because they're a communication device and they serve a practical function as well. It's not just leisure that they're for, whereas video games or TV, it's not like you can make a very solid argument for restricting those because you don't need them. Whereas smartphones have a practical purpose as well. And you really, you can get by without one, but you pretty much need one nowadays.
Yeah, it's so integrated into like your banking, bro. You bank on your phone really now. Like I only really, I do everything on my phone. It's wild. I don't really like it, but what are you gonna do, innit? I guess.
Yeah, the only reason I ever used to go into the bank for like the last few years was to cash checks, and they've made it so you can do that on your app as well.
Yeah,
now. And I'm like, there goes the bank.
Because when I saw that, I was like, that's pretty nuts. Because I just saw it and I thought it was going to be like, pay in a check or like cash a check, and I was like, but I'm gonna like click that and then probably have to be like, and go to this bank. This is where your closest bank is. So I've never clicked it, but then I was speaking to someone yesterday and it was like, you can do it on your app, and I was like, you can pay in a check on your app. I haven't done it because
you just take a picture of it.
Yeah, I thought it might be something like that, which makes sense, I guess, because obviously you can only cash that once, innit? Do you know what I'm saying? No one can. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I guess technology is sick.
The funniest bit's where they like take a picture of the back, and you take a picture of the back, and it's just blank. it's just like a white square, and I'm like, what are they going to verify from that?
Just in case, just in case there's something. I'd like to. I know we've already kicked it off, but I'd like to read you the book is The Daily Stoic. 366 meditations on wisdom. One more than you can use per year. Well,
if you're going to do it daily,
year, don't you?
Okay, that's what it's for.
Yeah, come on, bro, flip it now. Or like, because sometimes like March, is it? What's February, has like.
Come on, bro.
Day. What? Sorry.
Turning it back around on you. You thought you got me.
Did I? Well, I did get you. You were the one who forgot. I had to remind you. Right. So this is it's for April the 15th. It's called Pay Your Taxes. Very short as well. Nothing will ever befall me that I will receive with gloom or bad disposition.
All right, Morpheus.
I will pay my taxes gladly. Now, all the things which cause complaint or dread are like the taxes of life. Things from which, my dear Lucilius, you should never hope for exemption or seek escape. Seneca. So, yeah, man, I think it's reading this just each day. I like it a lot. It gives me stuff to ponder on. I love Stoicism, and it's wild to think that these guys have been trying to live simple lives since before Jesus was even around. That's what's kind of wild to me, is that like all of this knowledge is there, but it seems like it's so, I mean, obviously it was so long ago, but it seems like it's also so far away from, well, if you log in online or if you turn on the news or just look at anything, like living a simple and restricted life, it just seems so far from like where we are. Of course, it doesn't like necessarily perpetuate the capitalist society that we live in either, is it, to like restrict consumption. But and also I'm pro like capitalism as well, because I love it. But
I love consuming things.
Well, no, I love the mechanics of the system.
Yeah.
And how it's able to deliver like high quality products at a very low price. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, we wouldn't be able to be having this conversation with this equipment right now were it not for capitalism.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's fantastic because I'm a little technophobe as well. No, not a technophobe. That's the opposite.
No, you're a technophile.
I'm a technophile, yeah. Oh, that sounds kind of...
You don't like the file bit.
I don't like the file bit. I just love technology. So yeah, but I think it's it's nice to read that and just have these little short passages. It does give you more of an explanation down at the bottom of like thoughts of it. But I like to just kind of jump to my...
Well, that was something. It had something in there like the life is suffering sort of thing. You know, it's interesting because Stoicism had a big influence on Christianity. If I listened to a series of lectures by Daniel Robertson on philosophy not that long ago, and he was sort of talking chronologically through the great ideas of philosophy that have sort of come up, and he was speaking about Stoicism because Stoics sort of believed that there was a natural order to the world, and that I guess part of it is just accepting the order of the world and that you couldn't necessarily know it, and then that was sort of morphed into the Christian idea of there being a natural order to the world. So they weren't that different from one another, and what you had in that was very similar to the bear your cross sort of thing, you know, to the image of Jesus, sort of your sufferings are the tax you pay for existence. So I can see a big crossover there.
Pay them gladly, yeah.
It's always Dostoevsky said it. Well, I'm not sure where he said it because I'm familiar with this quote from him because Viktor Frankl quoted him in Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you've ever read that.
No.
Really good book. I recommend it. It's really quick and easy to read as well.
Yeah.
But he basically he quotes Dostoevsky as saying that there's one thing I fear, and that's not to be worthy of my sufferings. Which is very much in that.
I like that. That. I have this. So I'm definitely like. I know people don't really like this, especially people that are religious and do practice a religion. They hate what I'm about to say, but like I'm definitely. I think we spoke about it a little bit in the past as well, but definitely way more spiritual. I believe in a God, not the God of any book. I definitely think it's something that's personal to me, and I don't follow any there's no culture associated to the God that I believe in. And the way I always have this thing that I do as well. Kind of like every morning or evening, I'll always say, thank you, God. Thank you for giving me all of the bad and all of the good today. And also thank you so much for allowing me to recognize that whatever's happening right now feels bad, but it's going to be good. And whatever's happening right now that's good can potentially feel bad. And for giving me the ability to even see that and step back holistically, because there's a lot of people that move through the world kind of ignorant and aren't particularly self-aware. So I think having that gratitude and kind of being worthy of your own suffering, do you know what I'm saying? I think it's a very important. So I think I like that. That's a cool quote. I like it a lot.
There's a lot of cool quotes in that book. You should definitely read it.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, but I think that you can't have something without its opposite existing. So without bad, there cannot be good, because you can't conceptualize good. Because if you say, this glass of water is really good, then you're saying that there is good, which means there's something that could be worse than that. It created this sort of implicit hierarchy of value, And so the thing that's furthest removed from that thing you've defined as good is inherently bad. But that means that you can't have good without bad. So you can't, how can you appreciate comfort? How can you appreciate the privileges and luxuries of life? How can you appreciate the things you have if you don't know what it feels like to never have them, or to be uncomfortable, or to be in pain, or to be suffering? You can never understand what you truly have until you know what it is to not have it. So I'm, and I mean, you can take this to when you really embody this sort of ethic, you can find yourself, you can unlock really great things. I think they say like really key to achieving potential is to really understand just how much you gain through suffering. And when you think about going to the gym, for example, it's very easy to convince yourself to be like, oh, I'm not doing another rep, I'm not doing another set, or something like that. Like, I'm in pain, I'm suffering, and obviously there has to be a limit, because you don't want to you don't want to be an idiot and just injure yourself like I always do.
Like you are currently.
Like I'm currently injured. But you're like, well, actually, if I go through this, then I gain something from it. And understanding that and really deeply embodying this idea that for every one of my sufferings, I unlock an appreciation for life, I unlock the potential of the world. You can get yourself through a lot through doing that. And it's sort of like when I find like long distance running and long distance hiking to really bring out this in a very clear way for me, because it's like, when you've been walking for a week all day every day and your entire body's aching, and you're starting to get little injuries in your knees and your feet, and your shoulders are sore from carrying your bag and everything, and you've been sleeping in a sleeping bag in a tent that you're just setting up on the side of a mountain here and there. But then you're in this beautiful environment, and you're sort of like, on the one hand, this is miserable, but every single step that I take is being rewarded, and so you have this juxtaposition of suffering and beauty next to each other. And to me, I can't think of anything that it could be more accurately described in the symbolic terms of communion with God than being at that point where you are suffering immensely and being rewarded with beauty for every step you take into that suffering.
I think there's two things there. So I mean, first thing is that like recognizing the suffering also allows you to recognize where pleasure is present as well, because no one's life, no matter how bad it is just complete suffering. Do you know what I'm saying? There's going to be some good somewhere, and if some people may just focus on the bad or the suffering in their life, because obviously what you're talking about is voluntary suffering as well, which is very important, which a lot of people don't do. And I think people can put themselves in a position of constant pleasure, constant dopamine hits, but it's generally some sort of kind of some instant gratification framework that's been so playing games, eating food, and it yields no kind of long-term rewards, and then as such it puts you into like a place of suffering now, because the human isn't supposed to kind of be in that place for too long. But yeah, so I think kind of just understanding that like, yeah, the suffering is temporary, and that there's actually a lot of good going on as well. There's a lot to be around for. There's a lot to appreciate, and even just saying thank you. I think I heard Jordan Peterson say this. I think Jordan Peterson was talking to Ben Shapiro, because talking about religion and praying and stuff like that, and thanking God and being grateful for suffering, just being grateful for anything, and just saying it out loud. Because as well, the moment that like you say things out loud, then it becomes a little more real, and the moment you write something down, it becomes even more real. And just being grateful. Like I've really learned, this is something I've really learned when I say my little whatever you would call it. I don't know if you can call it a prayer, but whatever it is, like just saying thank you for whatever's going on. The worst things happen today. Thank you so much for giving this to me, because without this, I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't know what a good thing now looks like. So yeah, wholeheartedly agreeing. I guess the second thing is I would have to disagree on the point you made about suffering being juxtaposed to beauty, because cancer patients going through chemotherapy, you could argue there's probably nothing beautiful about that. It's probably just a horrible thing. But when you're voluntarily putting yourself through this struggle, that's something that's closely aligned to how the human body is supposed to operate, like carrying heavy things over long periods of time. Loads of dopamine in like a lovely place as well, because if you're just doing it in like in four walls on a treadmill, you probably wouldn't feel that great about it, innit? Do you know what I'm saying? So I think it's the mood and the setting as well. So it's the mind frame, the setting, and the fact that it's a voluntary struggle that you're participating in a beautiful environment. And I think that's something that's beautiful, because I think it's also as well like I was talking to one of my Muslim friends the other day, and because I was like, I just want to get a cabin in the Peak District by myself for a week, no phone, no nothing, don't want to talk to no one or see anyone. I just want to go up the mountains every day and just be with God. And he was like, yeah man, that's what the prophets used to do. And I was like, that's kind of crazy actually, because I guess that is what it was, isn't it? It was that you would go on the retreat to the mountains and you would meditate, I guess, and then you'd come back with some wisdom, probably high on shrooms and stuff like that as well. And yeah, but yeah, anyway, so the point I'm making is that, like, yeah, I think they are juxtaposed sometimes, but when you're adopting a voluntary struggle, I would say that, like, the beauty is inside of that struggle, not adjacent to it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. So I think that the juxtaposition when I was talking about that is just that they provide contrast, but they're part of the same image.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the yin and yang. You know, you have the chaos and the order, the good and the evil, the masculine and the feminine, all the different things that they represent. They are contrasted to one another, but they're also part of each other, and that's what the small dot within each of them means. You know, they're
I know.
Yeah, so neither can exist without the other, even if they exist in juxtaposition to one another. But I would also say
suffering and beauty, like I said, a cancer patient, isn't it?
Yeah,
not really much beautiful, but
I think there is beauty in that.
What is the beauty?
Well, the beauty comes from how many sort of, you know, children with cancer have you seen that have. So I'll take an example. Bradley Lowry is a very famous football fan. I think he was Sunderland. Young kid with cancer. His journey through cancer united a huge number of people in support of him who were bonded over this, regardless of, you know, even football fans who would have been rivals were all sort of cheering along for this kid and doing everything they could to offer him experiences and to help support him and to make the most of it. So,
but what you're talking about
that
is
suffering,
community gathering around him, but not the actual thing itself. There's nothing beautiful about, do you know what I'm saying, seeing like suffering from, like, involuntary suffering from some biological cause.
Well, it's a horrible thing, but that suffering still brought about some beauty. So my point is that no suffering exists without something else.
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing with that. Yeah. I'm just saying that, like, yeah, there is suffering that isn't beautiful. There is no beauty in some of that, unless you like to see. Like, do you know what I'm saying? I've never seen someone go through chemotherapy in mid chemotherapy treatment and be like, I fucking love this. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, this is, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great. My body attacking itself. Like, this is amazing. Do you know what I'm saying? But like I say, the community that surrounds that person and the strength that person can provide to other people, maybe in a more fortunate position, I'd say is beautiful. But the suffering there there is no beauty. Personally, but beauty is also in the eyes of the beholder as well.
I guess what I'm saying is that suffering, as horrendous as it is, still brings about beauty in the world that might not have existed were it not for that suffering.
I agree.
Yeah. So that's sort of where I'm coming from.
There's nothing beautiful about the suffering there.
No.
Yeah. Unless you think so, then that's fine.
Just to be clear, in case anyone had any doubts, we do not support kids with cancer.
I don't think there was any doubt about my sense. So there's no we in this. I think you might want to clear that one up for yourself there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we don't condone cancer.
We're not about that here.
No. FBC.
So I think there's probably some things in this that are relevant to the book that we haven't even mentioned yet.
No. Yeah, go for it.
A Confederacy of Dunces.
Yes.
What's the author's name? Is it John Kennedy O'Toole? Is that his name?
Yes.
Because
we had this conversation last time, didn't we?
Because of his name being
it's not John Kennedy, is it? No, maybe
it's something O'Toole.
Something. God damn.
This is
maybe you're right.
For some reason, my brain always goes JFK.
Yeah,
and then it completely blocks out his real name.
Yeah, that's all the time. Well, so it's Confederacy of Dunces, and we're having a difficulty remembering the dude's name.
Yeah,
I think shall we start with because I think one interesting thing that for me personally, the thing that got me into the book was hearing Billy Connolly talk about the guy himself.
Yeah.
That's what got, and I was like, okay, and the fact that he was like, it's the funniest book I've ever read. I was like, okay, that's the second thing. So I'd like to take a minute to talk about the guy as well. Once you,
go ahead, because I think that is a good example of what we're talking about, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Of suffering bringing about beauty.
So this dude, Mr. Kennedy or whatever,
Mr.
O'Toole or something. Apparently he lived a very unsuccessful life. He lived with his mum till the age of around 30, I believe. He wrote, I think, 2 books, this being one of them, and I think the only one that got published. And then I might be having that wrong. This might be the only book he wrote, but I think it was 2.
There are 2.
Yeah.
The other one got published slightly later, but I just can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I just don't think it landed as well necessarily, maybe. And then the guy committed suicide, and his mother took this book, The Confederacy of Dunces, and kind of went around to some publishers and wouldn't stop pestering them until they published this book, or read it at least anyway. And the guy kind of apparently always felt like a failure, and had no prospects, or felt like he had no prospects. And one very interesting thing about that gentleman's life is that when you read the book, you start to see these characters that emerge that seem like parts of him and his view of the world. In particular, the main character or protagonist in this instance, Ignatius J. Riley, who also has a middle initial for his name, just as the author does as well, because he has the middle initial in it, something dot surname. And it's about this very underwhelming, highly autistic, I would say, unsuccessful mother's boy who has now become the world's problem after being mollycoddled, because also the author came from a single parent household because his father wasn't present, and the protagonist in the book as well was his father died at a young age, and in my opinion the book is about a man's journey through childhood to adulthood without having the guiding hand of a father, but instead of having the all-consuming mother, but not in a negative way. Well, it results in a negative outcome, which then becomes the world's problem. But ultimately, checks and balances, like say yin and yang. If you have a mother that is giving love, I want to give everything to my child, but it goes unchecked by regime or discipline, then it becomes the world's problem. And that's what I took away from it. And I can draw parallels to that because I was born in a single parent household with just my mother. She was strict for sure, but having the father there as well to be stern and kind of give you some insight of what it's like to transition into a man, I think is important. So I just that's I would have wanted to, and then we can talk about it. I would love to hear, like, well, you've already told me, but I'd like to your on that.
Well, I think that is, I definitely got the impression from reading the book that all of the characters represented fragments of a whole, you know, and I think that those fragments of a whole exist within all of us. Like, then you could make a case that we all have many different, starkly contrasted parts of ourself. You know, when you have the conversation where you have like this instinct, the internal conversation where you have this instinct to behave in one way, and you're sort of like, well, actually that's probably not the best way to behave, but you feel that, you know, and yeah, I think that there's so much richness to this text because of the suffering that the author went through, and you know, I remember I must have read this. In fact, it might have been in the intro to the book, but basically, the publisher who published it in the end basically agreed to read the book as a sort of courtesy to the author's mother, and basically said that what he was expecting is to read the first page and then throw it away like he does with everything else, and because it was going to be nothing. And then he basically said he started reading it and felt aggrieved because he was basically like, no, I have to keep reading it, and it was sort of like involuntary that he kept on reading it and ended up publishing it because he was basically like, it's too good for me not to do it. And there's, so although his story is tragic, there is this element of beauty that emerged from it, which is this book, which is, you know, very, very funny. And also, I mean, I think there's an argument to some degree that anything you do artistically is somehow representative of your character, you know, like this, because I mean, I guess this is sort of part of the Jungian concept around symbolism and things like that, where the things we do and the things we create represent a projection of our internal psychology. And Ignatius J. Riley, to give him his full name, is a young adult. In fact, I can't remember how old he is in the book.
I think he's like late 20s, maybe. At this point. Late
so
20s.
He's he's well into his adulthood, but he's very indignant, isn't he? And very resentful at the world. He sort of has this elements of narcissism, elements of Machiavellianism, where he sees everything as being very centered around him, but he also has this idea of himself as like the savior, this sort of messianic idea of himself. Yeah. And he keeps butting up against reality because it's not a strategy that works in the world, but he always finds a way to manipulate that. And this is where the Machiavellian sort of personality comes in, where whenever he butts up against reality, he can then turn that and basically say, this is someone who is ignorant and below me, who is victimizing me, and they're just failing to appreciate my greatness. So every time he sort of tries this strategy for life in the real world and fails, it just reinforces him. And so, but he to me is the sort of classic failure to launch, in that he's never successfully left the nest, he's never successfully got out in the real world, and created a life for himself, but he's not learning the lessons that are being presented to him on a plate. And so you find in the story, there's situations like he gets a job. At one point, he gets a job that he actually enjoys, although he's doing a bad job of it. He's, rather than filing the files, he's just throwing them all away. And he's going down to the factories, and he's like rousing everyone up to try and get them into a rebellion, and they don't really understand why they.
So he's working. So he finds a job. So he also gets a few jobs in it. But so he finds a job at a Levy Pants, which is a clothing factory for they just make like work pants, like work trousers. So just some context in it. Yeah.
So he's working in the office, but he's going down to the factory, which I believe is predominantly staffed by black people,
or Mexicans. Yeah. I think it's black and Mexican. Yeah.
And basically, half the time they don't have any idea what he's on about, because he talks in this really pompous way, where there's sort of this delusion of grandeur, where he's sort of using very elaborate language but not really saying anything of any substance. And then he basically convinces them all to go up to the offices and kidnap the owner of the factory, doesn't he? So it's very it's very Marxist almost, where he's like, the proletariat must rise up against the bourgeoisie. But basically then they get up there, and because none of them really believe it or understand it, they sort of go, what are we doing? And then he's sort of saying, no, get him, kill him, and like encouraging violence, and they're all like, no, sod this, and they just go back to work and leave him on his own, and he loses his job. And so he actually gets something he appreciates in the world, because afterwards he sort of realizes that he liked that job, doesn't he? And he sort of wants it back, but he sort of continuously sabotages himself.
But as I say, he also doesn't. So like, whilst you'll see these moments of like self-realization, where he's like, oh, I've lost. Wait, but no, actually, they should have never. They weren't good enough to have me anyway. And then like he doubles down on it, and I think it's just so interesting, because like, so he also writes a letter as the office as the office manager to one of the customers, a large one as well, saying, I'm going to take you to court, this, that and the other. And then it ends up being a lawsuit against the owner, who's a very absent part of the business anyway. And he just does there's constant effort to make the world acknowledge him, and like I said, this is what, like, it just keeps on coming back to, like, when he's at home, because like it starts off with him being at home, his mother them going to a bar to have a drink or something like that, or like they end up in a bar to have a drink, and then she drives back because he convinces her to keep on having a drink, and because he stresses his mother out, his mother keeps on having a drink, so now she's got a dependency on alcohol through Ignatius being ignorant and just obtuse, and in doing so, the mother then drives back home and then crashes, because during the car ride, Ignatius is being idiot. He's being Ignatius, and she crashes the car, and when she crashes the car, she doesn't have any money to pay it. So now Ignatius has to get a job. But this is what I'm saying, is like, at some point you can no longer contain this self-centered, ignorant child anymore, because now that child is a man or a grown-up adult, and now that spills over. It's like having something on boil. It's all right when it's contained in the pan. It's all right when it's contained in the home, because it's the home's problem. But it's going to start to spill over into the real world, and the real world doesn't have time to, or doesn't care, or have the empathy to parent for the parent. And everywhere this person goes, it starts off with a calm, status quo, and then it starts to this entity just cannot exist without being recognized as the one true savior of like all humanity, and and then he gets a job as a hot dog seller, vendor, and he that's actually like he does all right at that job, funnily enough, but then he also
he just eats all the hot dogs.
He does eat, but he ends up so like at first because he gets told off about it and whatnot, doesn't he? About like there being less money and less hot dogs than it started off with,
and he gets caught by the food inspector trying to wrangle a feral cat into the hot dog trolley.
And he's got a valve that doesn't open if he's stressed out. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what they mean by valve. It's sort of a weird thing that he keeps coming back to. But it's some sort of physical defect. That
is it like a gastric? Like he can't maybe burp. He gets a lot of like stomach acid if he gets stressed out.
It does seem to be some gastrointestinal type distress.
Now you went and closed my valve. My valve's closed. I'm gonna be wrecked all day. Because it also takes place in like St. Louis.
I don't know the name. I can't remember the name.
I think it takes place in St. Louis, which is in.
I know that he quite often writes the accents, especially for Jones.
Ooh-wee. Yeah, man, like Jones. Oh man, Jones. You know what? So, who's your favorite character? I would like to know that.
Who's my favorite character?
Yeah.
In terms of who I got the most enjoyment out of reading about, or who I liked the most?
Just give me both of them.
Okay. I liked Patrolman Mancuso because I felt like he was an idiot, like the rest of them. Like everyone in this book is an idiot in their own way. And sometimes, though, those idiocies complement each other. Sometimes they exacerbate each other. But Mancuso was incompetent and an idiot, but he was trying. He was really trying the whole time.
Bless him.
And I quite like the fact that things came off for him in the end. You know, although by sheer chance, and and sort of he was the winner out of the chaos because he was the one who continued to work and make an effort. And he was genuinely a kind person within the book. You know, he wanted to do good. I think, though, Ignatius just was the one I got the most enjoyment out of.
Oh my God!
Because he reminded me so much of, and this is how I came on to describing him. Really, is that he has this character where he just sees himself as the victim, but as somehow important to the world and some beacon of hope and going to be the one who. And it just reminded me so much of this temptation that I've recognized and existed within myself, particularly when I was younger. And I've seen it in so many other people, you know, who exist in this perpetual state of victimhood where no matter what happens, they don't take the message from the world that actually their strategies aren't really optimal for the situation. They don't take that message. Instead, they just go, well, if things have gone wrong, it's because the world's against me and the world is unfair. And so he embodied a narrative that I've seen played out in the world a number of times, but it was because I wasn't having to come into conflict with it because I was reading about it. I was able to see the humor within it. So I think he was my favorite character in terms of entertainment, but Mancuso was probably the one I liked the most.
Okay.
Same question back at you.
So I'd say so my favorite character has to be Jones, and in terms of so two of them, I guess from a written perspective, I just think every character, like you say, is a fraction of a whole, and so every character has their own value, but that's how stories are written as well. And it is like you can't have one character be everything. It doesn't make for a compelling story.
Just like real life.
Yeah. But I think it's one of those where so my two characters have to be Jones and Patrolman Mancuso. Jones because, like I said, like they all have these like weird little flaws, but he's super smart. He's super, but not smart. He isn't literate. I think he's illiterate for sure, and he doesn't necessarily have the get up and go to achieve great things in life. But his awareness, his situational awareness, is just amazing. So he knows what his observation skills are like amazing. So he knows that there's police officers in the bar, and he knows exactly what they look like. He knows, like, he's like, oh, if you want to get this business off the ground, then you should really let that go, because there's that girl that's working at the bar and she wants to bring a pet in to like making it like to do an exotic dance and whatnot.
I've forgotten her name now.
I don't know either, but and he just sees all the, and then like he's like, oh, I know she's actually the bar manager is actually drug dealing as well. Like she's giving this guy drugs to come in, and
it wasn't drugs, was it? It was
what was it?
Pornographic
images. Yeah, my bad. The way that was going on was like it's fucking drugs or something.
Drugs,
and like so he just has this situational awareness, which I just think is just fantastic. And it's a situational awareness that no one else in the book has. There is no other character that has that sort of, can see everything going on. But then at the same time, he's so blind to the fact that he can't be arrested for not having a job.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That there's one massive blind spot where he's just like, well, I'm going to have to do this thing because they told me to.
They told me, or I'm going to get arrested. But then also, I guess that goes to it's a tell of the times that the book is set in, because it's when like black people could be arrested for delinquency, whatever that may even mean, and it seems like it's
wasn't it?
Vagrancy, and so it seems like so I guess there's some social thing going on there. But regardless, the fact that he isn't aware, but he's also so aware, I just love that contradiction. And then Mancuso, because he is the complete opposite of Ignatius. He's someone that like, so Ignatius like stumbles into these, like he's got a nice office job with a nice pay, with a manager who he can very easily manipulate, and who also thinks the sun is shining out of his arse, as where you've got and he doesn't do anything, he doesn't earn his place in the world, and you got Patrolman Mancuso, who's like working so hard to like try to be respected and recognized, and he doesn't get that, and he has to dress up in all of these different costumes and then hang around in men's toilets to try to find someone to arrest. Who's like doing, and he almost comes up, and that guy who's selling pornographic images, he comes across him like a few times and still just can't like erect because he's just whatever. But then also the way that the respect that Ignatius has for women in general, and I think his mother just isn't present, or he doesn't have a lot of respect for like women. It doesn't seem like, as where Patrolman Mancuso takes his auntie and Ignatius's mom to go bowling, and like so you just have these. You know what I mean, he's a hardworking, good guy, man, with a good soul, and it's nice to see. Have you ever watched Arrested Development? The TV show? No. Okay, well, it's just like you have these, the good guys who can't catch a break sort of thing, and like he has that, and like you say, like it's fun, it's nice that it comes off for him in the end, but it's just nice to see how persistent this guy is, even though like he's coming up against adversity all of the time. And then like, because in the book as well, the way that they write it is, or the way he wrote it is like, there's lots of crossovers of these different characters, and like you'll hear about this weirdly dressed guy being like, and that's
green cap.
Yeah. Oh no, well no. So like, because Patrolman Mancuso.
Oh, when he was wearing the costume.
Yeah. And like you're like, oh, there's this weird character, there's this weird guy hanging around like asking me questions, and it's clearly Mancuso, and like it's just I can just visualize it, and it's so fun. So they're my two characters mainly, and it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I think that in that regard, Mancuso is actually quite representative of real life, because nothing ever comes off first try, and ultimately you do have to fail countless times before you'll succeed, and so that persistence although you feel sorry for him because you sort of see the suffering he's going through. I think there's one point where he's come down with the flu or something, isn't there? And he's in a stall in a bathroom because that's where he's been posed. And he's just like dressed up in this stall, freezing and really ill, and convinced. I'm sure he's just sort of convinced that he's going to die there. And but he's still trying to do his job. And so I think there is there's an ethic behind that plays out in the real world, and it makes me think. One of the places I can see a real parallel with that is BJJ. When you start, you just you spend all your time on your back with people pinning you and tapping you out, and you cannot make any progress. And no matter what you do, you don't seem to make any progress. And then one day something clicks, and you're like, oh, actually, I can escape this like that. And there has to be a patience and a persistence through the suffering. But it's like that with anything you do. Anything you do, work, you have to suffer through the boring jobs, the difficult jobs, the bits you don't want to do in order to get to the bits you want to do. And there's a lot more suffering than there is reward, but it just makes the reward sweeter, like we were talking about to begin with.
Exactly.
With the difference. But what did you think of because I know you sort of, is it Irene, was that Ignatius's mother, is that her name?
Potentially, could be.
It was something like that.
Sounds familiar.
So Ignatius's mum, you sort of saw her as the being overly coddling, and
at least she was anyway. And doesn't have the
now she's trying
for discipline.
Now she's trying to break away from the monster she's created. But to some degree, she's also dependent on him. So you can see that push pull, because her friends are sort of saying to her, he shouldn't treat you like that. And then she makes excuses for it, and sort of has a blind spot to it. And that's sort of how you saw her. How do you see her in relation to Miss Levy, then, the wife of the jean shop owner, who basically kidnaps the old woman from the factory? So
she's got dementia.
So that, because she wants to be her savior and she wants to sort of be her therapist. How do you see them in relation to each other? Because I think it's the exact same thing. I think it's the exact same thing. However, if we look, the Levys have a father present, and that father says, "Oi, go off to university and get out of the house and just leave, just go." And the Mrs. Levy always blames him for the daughters not being there. And she says, "This is why they don't ever want to come back. Is because you're not very nice, and you did." And he's like, "Oh, just shut up, woman." And you know what I'm saying? And like, so there is that yin and yang there, isn't it? They're equally as opposite. Do you know what I'm saying? She's an overbearing mother as well, and because she can't do it to her daughters because her daughters aren't there, she instead kidnaps her husband's employee, who has dementia, and starts trying to do what would you say, second-hand shops, sort of therapy, or like psychology on us, untrained psychotherapy.
Exactly, and it doesn't go well because this woman has dementia, bless her soul, and she's convincing herself that she knows what needs to be done, and that just with enough time, and if we can find this woman some meaning in life, then she'll be all right. And the woman just wants to retire, and Mrs. Levy has made it so they can't retire her. No matter what, she has to stay working, and that's not good. But so I would say it's the exact same. It's the exact same person. It's just the circumstances happen to be different. It's the same, but in this instance, she doesn't have a child who is a monster. Instead, she's like kidnapping an old lady, and just torturing her with love and affection, and also is stuck with a gremlin who you could say is the husband, who is kind of cold and distant and just says and because also as well he showers her with money. He's like, "Oh, I've bought you all sorts of things all the time, and like there's no end to your to, like, you're never happy. There's nothing that you ever will get that makes you happy, and I guess she derives her value and happiness from providing affection to other people who do or don't want it. But I would say that's the exact same as Ignatius's mom.
Yeah. I think it's a different manifestation of the same impulse, this idea, because she sort of has this idea that she knows best and that
but what's different about it?
What's different about it?
Yeah, because it's a different manifestation, but I think it's the exact same.
It's not the exact same, because with Ignatius's mum, it's happening to her child, and with this person, it's to a stranger. So all I mean when I say different manifestation, I mean it's just happening in a different way, in a different context. Yeah. But it's the same impulse that's driving it. This sort of, I can take people, I can care for people, I know what's best for them, I can take them under my wing and protect them and form a meaningful life for them. And in the case of Ignatius and his mum, it's more about protecting him from the outside world. And in this case, she's almost trying to protect, I can't remember the old woman's name. She called Ignatius Gloria all the time, but that's, I've forgotten her name. But protect this old woman almost from herself. She's sort of saying, no, Gloria is what she called Ignatius all the time, because she's got dementia and she thought he was called Gloria. But she's sort of got this, I know better for you than you know for yourself. And this woman's basically like, I want to retire. She's like, no, if you do that, you're just going. And she stifles this woman and basically is ruining her life. But I think that it's not actually ever about this woman. It's about Miss Levy herself, and it's about what she gets from it and who she gets to perceive herself as. So it's this sort of fake moral virtue, this fake sort of it's almost, well, in fact it's virtue signaling in action to some degree. It's sort of like, I'm going to be your savior, so that everyone perceives me as your savior, and I can perceive myself as your savior, whether or not what I'm doing is the right thing. And I'm not going to step back and assess that and listen to the different inputs, including the voice of the person themselves.
Don't you think that's what this is as well? Like this podcast and everything that humans essentially do? Because this is a signal out to the world. Look at me. I read a book. This is what I think about a book. Look how intelligent I am. Look how I can articulate myself in this way. Aren't you so impressed? Wow. Derive value from how intelligent I am. Do you know what I'm saying? That is, I think we all get so self-obsessed. Like, I make music and create videos. That's the exact same thing. It's like, look at me. Recognize me, world. That's what it is. That's all it is. I would say the only time that isn't the case is when you're in service to someone voluntarily and no one knows about it. It's only you and God. That's the only time I believe someone is truly doing something that isn't a signaling virtue of some sort. And that's why I think we use that, because I mean it's something that's popular with centrists and right-leaning people to shout about virtue signaling on the left, is that's in itself is a virtue. Like, you're like, look how I can recognize these people being pretentious.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess so are you, because what are you about to say now? This is I have a strong family life, I have a career, I have this education background. Oh wow, and what are you trying to signal now then? How respectable you are? How virtuous you are, how you live a restricted. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think, like, yeah, that whole like virtue, that just every time I use it 100% but I admit myself that is absolutely what it is that I do. But like, I would say, like, being in service, so like doing charity work, but no one knows about it. You don't tell no one, you don't talk to no one, you just go give. Yeah, I love that. That's just you doing good. Do you know what I'm saying? Like going to see your mum and just spending time with your mum and just loving your mum or your dad, whoever, and just giving that to them. amazing. There's no, but you know, the moment someone takes a picture and starts showing people that picture, you're virtue signaling now. Look at what I've done.
Like the random acts of kindness that aren't random because they're filmed and contrived.
But even like, so like social media is nothing but, because of course it is, because you're sharing the thing. So anything that anyone ever post, like, but again, that's why this is going to go on social media. It's going to go on YouTube, Facebook, wherever. YouTube. Yeah, and you're going to signal. You're going to be like, guys, look at me, recognize me, innit? Because and you also want to be proud of this work as well, don't you?
I think that it's something that exists on a spectrum.
For sure.
And so you can argue that someone going and doing something incredibly generous and kind with no pretense or context, no potential for recognition or social benefits is the purest form, because there's no question about whether it's being tainted by this motivation to achieve a sort of social perception of yourself. So that it's not something you can contest then, because it's just pure. But I think that there are different motivations for things, conscious and unconscious, that we have to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is always the risk of it being tainted by this attempt to virtue signal or to promote an image to the world that is manufactured or disingenuous in some way. But I think to say that all actions that are not done in secret are inherently about social perception is also, I think it's too simplistic.
So not all actions.
Yeah.
Actions so when you're putting on a show, because this is what this is. We're putting on a show right now, aren't we? Because we aren't saying dick jokes and talk, and also we have very racist jokes as well, don't we? But we don't want that here, innit? That's not what this is, innit?
Yeah.
So we're putting on a performance, and obviously we consent to the racist. Everything's fine. It's good. I love it.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is, though, innit? We're putting our best foot forward, and we're displaying our intelligence, our ability to converse, listen, etc., and how we can disseminate information via text or audio. Yeah. And so not very well, obviously. And
just to prove the point.
And as such, that suggests, and because if this was just me and you having this conversation and no one else was going to see it, then I know what this conversation was. It was just two people coming together to just hash things out. Like, for example, like when we go to the gym, and our conversations on the way to the gym, at the gym, and then on the way back. Whilst it is a practice for this, that is as pure as it gets. I don't go on social media and start being like, I had the sickest conversation with Robin today. It was about and neither do you. And that's, do you know what I'm saying? That is it in its purest form. But the moment that we start to make a spectacle out of it, that is signaling. We are signaling something. And I think to be under the impression that it's pure, I think that's a delusion. And it's just like, I was actually having a conversation with this woman the other day, old friend from work actually, and she was finding it very difficult to understand. So she's a social justice warrior for sure, and I called her a social justice warrior. Well, I said, you're very much on the side of social justice, aren't you? She's like, yeah, I am. Yeah, I believe that like marginalized people should have a place and shouldn't be marginalized. I was like, you know what? I agree. So I was like, because I made a gay joke. And she's like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, oh, it's funny. And she's like, why is it funny? I was like, because I find it funny. I find that joke funny.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, you mean it to be offensive? And I'm like, no, but it could be offensive maybe. Are you offended? She's like, not really, but a gay person could be. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Fine, that's more power to you. And I was like, what if I did mean it? Would you think I'm wrong? She's like, yeah, I would think you're wrong if you meant it. And I was like, I'm wrong. And should I be allowed to be here if I'm being if I'm wrong and I'm being homophobic? So homophobic people are wrong. Do you agree? She's like, yeah, I agree. Okay. But homophobes think that being a homosexual is wrong. She's like, yeah. So I'm like, but so now you're saying, so because I think something's wrong and that you think that's wrong, that's wrong. So do you not see that, like, the moment that you put someone in you marginalize them and say, you're wrong, that's the wrong thing to do because you think that's the wrong thing to do. Do you not see how it's just an opinion and you have to be careful with your opinions because you're doubling down on something that you're condemning. And if I'm condemning homosexuality and you're condemning me for condemning that, then it's a very slippery slope because all of a sudden, let's say, for example, we pass into law that being a homophobe is, which I'm not. I love gay people. Well, I don't love gay. I like people, and some of those people are gay. Yeah. But I can't be like, oh, look, all homosexuals. No, because there's some dickheads out there. But there's every kind of dickhead in the world. Sorry for swearing. And I think with this, particularly this, and this is what because I've been following like a lot of the centrist and right wing people for quite a while, because they've kind of been saying a lot of things that I found useful through transitioning to this part of my life that I'm in now, which is being very responsible for my place in this world and for the people around me as much as I possibly can, and for the things that are within my control. But one thing that I do notice is that, like, they do this thing where it's like they signal themselves, but they don't acknowledge their signaling, and that then makes me look at how people act and okay, who else does that, and when else do they do that? And I think this is one of those examples of, like, when we see that woman, for example, that Mrs. Levy, virtue signaling. I don't even think it's so. I wouldn't even call it that. I just don't like that term. I would say it's more, we derive our self-value from the things that we hear, say, and do, particularly the things that we do. When someone gives to charity, they don't do that because it feels bad. They do that because it feels good for them. It isn't a selfless act. It's a selfish act. You want to feel good. You feel good by doing those things. So if someone doesn't give to charity, that isn't a bad person. If someone does give to charity, that's not a good person. They're just a person doing a thing, but they're getting value from whatever it is that they're doing. And if that person feels good from flipping making this woman with dementia try to have a good life by making her life worse and terrible and horrible and miserable, is she a good or bad person? I don't know. Is she signaling? I don't know. But what she is doing is she's trying to get the most value out of her life possible, and that's what it is. And you see these people online as well, video recording these. Oh, I just wanted to help this guy out, so I got him a haircut and $200 and like give him $200 in like clothes and stuff like that. And it's like, they're trying to, like, that equates to, I wouldn't even say it's virtue signaling. I would say that equates to them having a larger following, them getting more attention, and their value hierarchy, whatever's at the top of that, whether it be attention or money or whatever, that's being dopamine. Oh, I love it. Do you know what I'm saying? And like this conversation now, like, I'm sure you're going to be getting, oh, I get to release a thing and I get to do the thing. So you could say it's virtue signaling, but I would just say it's like you're trying to find your value and your place in this world, and so is everyone, even the people with blue hair. Like, you're a transphobe. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they're saying it on like social media, but it's doing something else. It's like, I need to feel valued. Here's my value, and it just manifests in this whack way for most people. Which is,
well, I think, yeah, I completely get what you're saying, and it's a sort of long-standing philosophical debate of whether there's any such thing as something that's truly selfless.
Yeah, there isn't.
And
yes, there is. War. Going to war. Because you're going to die. The likelihood of you dying is like, yo, who doesn't die in war?
But if you die a hero's death, you get legacy.
No, you don't, because you're dead, bro.
Yeah, but people care about their legacy, don't they?
No, because they're dead. That's an alive thing. What you're talking about is a concept that you can hold on to whilst you're alive.
But people, there is a perception that goes along with someone who is willing to go to war
for people that are alive.
Yeah, but that motivates someone to do it, so they are
100%.
So they're
going to die.
Well, quite possibly, but what I'm saying is their motivations aren't purely selfless if they believe that there's something in it for them.
Correct.
Even if that reward comes after their death.
So I'd say it definitely hits that value in their mindset of like, oh, I get to feel like this good feeling, and if it is be it glory or recognition or pride or whatever it may be, 100%. But the fact that you're no longer going to be able to, that there's a high possibility that you're no longer going to be able to feel like that, and you're doing it knowing that you're no. You know what I'm saying? Because what other action that you can take that is a selfless act is one in which it will probably result in death, because you need to equate that the feeling you have is no longer going to exist, and no feeling of anything, no awareness of anything is going to exist.
Well, so this is. Although it's very much on a different side of the spectrum, I think this is part of what motivates school shooters, for example, and I think sometimes it's what motivates people to self-harm or to commit suicide, is that there's people will recognise me if I do this. Mm-hmm. And, I have encountered many times people who are suffering, who are experiencing some sort of emotional distress, that maybe the result of other people's actions, or they feel is the result of other people's actions, and they feel like their place in the whole situation is not being recognized, and they go, well, if I take this drastic action, then people will have to see me, people will have to notice me, people will have to acknowledge me. And for school shooters, there can be a sort of there can be this real thing of the world doesn't know me, the world doesn't know who I am, well, I'm going to make them notice. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a similar psychological process where it's basically saying people will know who I am regardless of the consequence to me. Mm-hmm. Because a school shooter, there's a very real probability that they're going to get shot or spend the rest of their life in prison. It's one or the other.
For sure, yeah.
Or maybe a psychiatric hospital, depending. But we can sort of rule that one out for the sake of understanding the motivation. And with a soldier, they are going... I don't think most people go to war. They know that there's a risk of dying. They don't go and go, well, I'm going to die here. They don't. Most soldiers will go with I'm going to be good at it. Good enough to survive will be their motivation. People don't go and think, I'm going to get myself killed here.
In war,
they know there's a high probability of death.
But you don't think that when you go to war, not just I've joined the military. Like when it's wartime, you don't think they're like, yo, I'm fucking, this is it.
There will be points in time, but I think for the large part, most people think they're probably going to survive.
For real.
Because they think that they will act. They think that they're going to be. If you were going to war, you're probably going to go to war because you think your side's going to win.
No,
you're more likely to. Or
what? No, I'm being invaded, bro. Yo,
yeah,
I ain't letting this happen.
Well, this is the alternative. It's if you think of Ukraine, the Ukrainians have gone to war because they've been attacked, and so but they feel that their involvement increases the probability of winning. Mm-hmm. Because if they felt like there was
probably going to die, because
if they felt like there was no chance whatsoever, then they wouldn't do it.
That's not true. I don't think so. Look at the Vietnamese. Like, they didn't care. What? Big bad America. We don't care. Guess what? It ain't happening. Look at the Japanese. Yeah? What? Kamikaze. So what? It's time.
But if they think so, I'm wondering how much that has to do with there's a very different culture between the East and the West, and
yeah, for sure.
It feels too reductionist to reduce it to the East, but I remember speaking to a friend who'd lived in China for a while, and he was saying how the attitude there, he would speak to them about, he was talking about a conversation around nuclear war or something like that, and basically the general consensus there was, well, what does it matter if someone drops a bomb on China? There's a billion of us, so there'll just be more. It was very collectivist. It wasn't like there wasn't it was like the greater good is the country, not the individual. And I think we're more individualist in the West. Well, I don't think that. I know it fairly concretely. But we're more have a more individual thing in the West. So there's still a thing of being a hero, whereas there it's sort of like you sacrifice yourself for the greater good. Whereas here, I think there's still elements of that, because people, you know, if we think, and I guess why I sort of wasn't thinking of the defensive thing straight away is because I was thinking of the British military, because that's the context we're in. So I was trying to think about our army. I wasn't thinking in a more broad sense, but you have.
No, bro, I gotta disagree, man. Yo, bro, I'm just thinking now, if I'm getting deployed, I'm like, yo, shit. I need to be so aware or I'm gonna die. Like people are gonna be shooting at me with the intent that I'm gonna have to flipping. But do you not think that's wild?
Maybe why you're not in the army? Because you
I don't want to be in the army, bro.
Yeah,
but because it's not fun.
But it's part of the reason, not because you think that you weigh up those odds differently to someone who's more likely to join the army.
If we was being invaded, I'm ready to die for this. I'm ready to die for everyone's freedom in this country without a shadow of a doubt. But that ain't gonna happen. We'll drop nukes potentially before we get invaded by another country, or like, so it will be, or you'll just use up all of the actual people in the military before that's necessary. I'm never gonna go and join a foreign war for sure, because like that's wild. Like there's no need for that. Not that I can see here anyway. And I'm not very good at being told what to do. So I just won't. I'm just not going to fit very well in like the current military structure without a shadow of a doubt. So that's why I'm not in the army. It's not because I'm weighing up the odds of like will I live or die. If I need to defend my loved ones and like people's freedom in this country, then I think I'd be happy to go and do that, because do I want to live in a place that's no longer like where I live now, in the same place, and potentially see my loved ones and stuff die? Probably not. No, I don't think I'd want to live in this country when it's war torn. That might be a bit horrendous, and I don't know if I want to live with the horrific things that I would have had to do to be able to survive as well. Like, you know, if it's like an apocalypse, like I might just go out in a blade of glory. I'm not just trying to find a group of people and just start macheting them or something just so I can get murked. Because I like, if I got to eat cats, well, that's not too bad. Or dog, no, not dogs. But if I got to consider eating a human, I don't want to live anymore. I've spent my entire life just like living fantastically in like a first world country. I ain't trying to like resort to eating humans now. Like, if that's the case, then come on, call it a day. Now I ain't really enjoy. I want to make music and chill. Do you know what I'm saying? But I don't know. Sorry, I got way off on a tangent there.
You say that now, but what happens when that decision actually comes? I think the things get weighed up very differently.
I'll just, to be fair though, I think I'll be one of the last people to die anyway, because like I think you'll die real quick, because you'll just die of hunger. You got nothing on you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you'll just be like, I'm so weak. Yo, you have to start eating meat again, bro.
You can't be vegan in the apocalypse.
Can't be a vegan in the apocalypse. Well, maybe. Like, you can't really get much from leaves though. There's general leaves on trees though, can you?
Yeah, but you guarantee when everyone's raiding the supermarket, they're going to leave all the vegan food behind.
No, I don't think so, bro. I think people will just start to be anything. Do you know what I'm saying? They'll just, I will eat anything at that point. Innit?
Yeah. But I've always, because people tend to ask you that. There's vegan people ask you that question. What would you do if you're on a desert island with a cow? And I'm like, I'd kill and eat the cow. Like,
what the heck?
When it's something I do because I have the choice to in my circumstance, and I will reevaluate it when those circumstances change. I'm not an idiot. I'm just going to sit there watching this cow. Perfect, like the cow's starving to death as well because there's nothing there, and I'm sat there starving. Going, I wish there was some tofu here.
Yeah, well, just kill the cow, close your eyes, and just imagine it's tofu. It's like, oh, this is the nicest tofu I've ever had in my entire life.
God damn, I can't. This is what real protein feels like. I'm the strongest I ever been, and I'm on a desert island.
I'm starving. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, man. Yeah. I think it's. I think that's one thing that's also very interesting about voluntary suffering, is that you put yourself close to these extinction events. Obviously not, but like, for example, like when I go to the gym, like I'll go fasted and I won't drink any water, and I'll make sure that I go. Well, you've been to the gym. They aren't easy workouts, are they? They're very intense.
Yeah.
You lift relatively heavy, like, and you're knackered, innit? It's not fun. It's not easy. That's also the thing about sparring as well, is that like it gets very scary in there, because if someone's got more energy than you and better technique, then you're not gonna be. It's a bad time for you.
Or just wait. Do you have any idea how often, like at BJJ, if I go against people who are lighter than me, it's if they're better than me, then they completely dominate me anyway. But sometimes I go against people who are lighter than me, and I'm like, well, I can just sort of sit on them, and it's all right. I go against someone who's got 15 kilos on me, and they pin me, and I'm like, I can't breathe and I can't move.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
yeah, but like, but that's just someone laying on you. But when like you're advancing position and you go for an arm bar, but that's not BJJ. If someone's just laying on you, like if someone's getting to a dominant position, because like, you should still be able to think. The whole thing about BJJ as well is that it doesn't matter how strong or how much you weigh. Technique is supposed to win, and that's why they don't do slams.
But they still have weight classes though, because
not always. No, they don't. Not always.
In all the tournaments they do.
No, they don't.
They have an open category.
Yeah, exactly.
But not all
the tournaments.
They have weight classes, or you can agree to go in the open category.
Exactly. So not all the tournaments.
Yeah, all the tournaments. It's just all the tournaments will also have an open weight category.
Exactly. So it's not then, is it? Because they can't have an open weight category and then say in all the tournaments they've got weight categories. It's like no. There is weight categories and then there's open, which suggests that there's the ability to have.
But this is a semantical argument, because they do have weight categories.
Yeah, but
it's just one of them's open.
Yeah, but they don't. But it's not only weighted categories. Like they will also have open.
Yeah. We're agreeing on that.
Yeah. I know. No, you disagree.
Move on, bro.
Yeah,
Move on.
I say no more. Sorry. But yeah, the whole point is supposed to be that technique wins. But yeah, I think, like I say, like it's fun doing those sorts of martial arts and stuff, because that's where it starts to feel close to like extinction level events. When I say extinction level, I just mean like your life being extinct, like your singular life being and you're in deep water in it, and you're finding it difficult to
when you're
breathe.
in a triangle choke and your vision starts to go blurry because you've got no blood going to your brain.
Yeah, or just even when someone's got your back and you're exhausted, and it's the second minute of the fourth round, and it's a 5-minute round, and you're just like, yo, like. How do I get? But you can't give up. I'm not just going to give it. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And just that feeling that you get, like, it's terror. I get terrified. I'm like, I'm so scared. But like, I've got to just fight this now. I love that. Oh yeah, like man, just pushing through those barriers is just incredible. So I think like we like to put ourselves in those like. Yeah, those dangerous. Those like to simulate real.
That's where you find
danger.
out who you really are.
Yeah, for real. I love it, you know.
How many people have you met through your life who sit there in the pub talking about, oh yeah, if this happened, I'd just do that, or if this happened, I'd just do that, and you're like, no, you wouldn't.
I'm just like, I do whatever you say.
And that's why, I mean, it's the same. I always go back to the long distance hiking and things like that, just because I've done so much of it. But it's the same with that. It's the same with martial arts. The same. You get to a point where you're like, I am wrecked. Like everything is gone. I don't have any more to give. And then you have to have a conversation with yourself where you're like, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Are you going to give up? Because giving up doesn't seem like a good option.
Well, yeah, you're just going to get smashed
and that's when you find out who you are. Yeah. Are you the person who gives up, or are you the person who can draw on a little bit more, who can find something else, who can keep going until there's no choice? And it turns out that so far I've mostly been the person who can keep going. Yeah. But there's going to be a limit to that. I just haven't
there always is.
I'm just going to keep pursuing it until I find it.
Yeah, that's the whole fun.
Look forward to the news story where I've fallen off a cliff and died.
Oh, no. All right. Well, there you go, guys. FYI.
There's the limit.
His limit. Yeah. Sick. Right. I think I'm going to have to call it because I got the gym at 11:30 and it's 22 minutes past right now.
Okay.
I think this is a perfect way to end it. 1 hour and 25 minutes?
Yeah.
We spoke about the book as well, which was sick.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle of
in the middle of this. But no, thank you very much. I think this has been the best one so far. And as long as your editing skills aren't trash, then I think you should.
Yeah.
You should. This should actually be, because what's this now?
This is
like the fourth one.
I think. Yeah. But hopefully, now that we're using the different cameras, everything, because I don't know. Usually, even if the camera and audio is out of sync, it's always out of sync. Yeah. But you can sync it back up again.
Yeah.
When you can sync the start and sync the end, and it still goes out of sync in the middle, you're like,
wild.
one of these files is corrupted somewhere, and I don't know how I'm going to fix that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was going on there.
Well, because all you need is this audio file here.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And just line it up with
good.
the two. Yeah.
Should be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should.
But also we haven't stopped recording as well, which I think is important, because I think we stopped recording at one point and started again. So I think that doesn't help. But
no, it doesn't.
This has been a continuous recording.
Well, there's loads of technical information that no one needed to hear, but
yeah, well, hey, look, there you go.
There you go.
You will.
They didn't need to hear any of it.
Nah.
There's only about 4 of them who listen anyway.
Yeah, well, we're virtue signaling anyway. So
It's all.
That's what it's for.
It's all for the likes.
It's all for
Please like me.
Please recognise me. No, but thank you very much, man. I really appreciate this.
Yeah,
it's been
me
a pleasure.
Too. And now we need a new book.
Yeah. Let's make it a nice one as well, though. Like, not something about philosophy, because I hate intellectual masturbation, and that's all that like Nietzsche and them not do anyway. So
just end it quickly on. Oh yeah, I hate Nietzsche.
I do like Nietzsche, but just talking about it is just boring.
Oh
yeah.